motherhood experience, no matter where they are in their motherhood experience. And I myself, I am a mom of a toddler who was in the NICU. I am also a veteran of high risk pregnancies. And so I also specialize in supporting those populations as well.
Awesome, awesome. I'm so glad to have you. My specialty, my background is in maternal health, but specifically mental health. We have very limited training as nurses on the units working with moms and babies in terms of the mental health. I think one of the things that we do, um, we look out for signs of baby blues while moms are in the hospital, and we sometimes do a screening called the Edinburgh.
Yeah.
But then pretty much after that, recognizing the signs and symptoms of baby blues or, hi, Hadassah. I'm just gonna actually turn the video off just for a second. If you could turn your video off, just so the screen doesn't get, um, let's see, do the speaker view for now. Okay. All right. Awesome. So beyond that, um, we don't really get much training. And so you would have to seek additional outside training as a nurse to really be able to deal with the emotional complexities that go into pregnancy and childbirth. Um, so um, let's just maybe give an overview of what you do with your clients, if that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, I work with a wide variety of moms in the spectrum from, trying to conceive and settling into motherhood. And so some of the key areas where I really help moms is if you're pregnant and you're experiencing a lot of anxiety, I support moms in managing that anxiety and really finding calm not only in their mind but also in their body to really protect that pregnancy as well and to protect their health. I work with moms who are postpartum, so I help them prepare for that time in their life to make sure that their mental health is in check, how to recognize if postpartum depression or anxiety is popping up, and what to do. And then, of course, the moms who are already in that space, they're already experiencing some sort of postpartum mental health challenges. And I hold space for them, support
Awesome.
them through that. And then I do a lot of work around birth trauma. Um, and so I get a lot of moms who are sometimes 3 years out of having a baby, 4 years out, but they're finding that that trauma is still coming up for them and they're ready to do some work on that.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so let's get into our conversation, and later on, I'll definitely allow you to give your information. So if folks want to follow up with you, or if they want to work with you individually, how they can reach you and everything like that. Let's talk a little bit about what is perinatal or maternal mental health.
Yeah.
What does that encompass?
Yeah. So kind of like what I just talked about,
Yeah.
perinatal is that word that really encompasses from trying to conceive until that first year after giving birth to your baby. And they really shifted to using the word perinatal instead of postpartum because, I think there's been so much focus on postpartum depression and anxiety, but it really acknowledges that you can be pregnant and have anxiety, have depression, and a whole host of mental health issues that come along with that. So that's really what, yeah, perinatal mental health is focused on.
And when should moms become concerned? Is it throughout the pregnancy that they are more at risk for developing anxiety or other mental health issues? Like what should newly pregnant moms think about in terms of their mental health space?
Yeah, so if you are expecting, there are a few
Oh, did I
things.
lose you?
Okay, am I frozen? Can you see me?
You're unfrozen now. Awesome.
Okay, let me see.
Yep, I
Maybe
can.
it's okay. But yeah, so when you're expecting, there are a few things that kind of predispose you or make you more at risk for anxiety and depression. And some of those things are the things that I focus on, like high risk pregnancies, of course, right? That's an experience that brings up a lot of anxiety about what's going to happen next, and really throws off your expectations for what pregnancy should look like and what birth should look like. Of course, you don't have to have had an experience with anxiety before pregnancy to experience it, but certainly if you find that you've been prone to anxiety before pregnancy, then you probably want to already be seeking help during your pregnancy to manage those things. Um, and then, of course, I mean, if any big life changes happen, right, while you're pregnant, you want to be seeking support during that time. But the thing about postpartum depression that's a little bit different is that anybody, right, like
Mhm,
anybody could really experience postpartum because it's so impacted by hormones, you know?
mhm,
And so there are certainly some things that we can do to help moms to decrease their risk of experiencing depression, anxiety, postpartum, I mean, as well as even during the pregnancy. But again, you also just can never really predict because of the hormones. So it's more important to sort of know how to create the supports around you if you end up being the what is it like the one in 5 women who report having some sort of
mhm.
experience with postpartum mental health issues or during pregnancy.
Right. And what are some of the signs that either a pregnant woman or a newly delivered mom should look for if they think they may be suffering from some kind of perinatal mental health disorder or issue?
Yeah, I think that that's like the best question, right? Because um, because I think I encounter a lot of families who are worried about that, right? How do I know
Mhm,
if my significant
mhm,
other is going through postpartum? How do I know if I'm experiencing that? And some of the key markers is really going to be like the duration of time that you're experiencing the symptoms. Um, and also like how is it impacting your sense of self, your self-esteem.
mhm.
So for those who don't know, right, we have baby blues, right, which we expect most moms to go through baby blues. And that's just as a result of being exhausted, right? So you're feeling really tired, you're tearful and sad. Um, but you find that like with baby blues, overall, you're still happy.
Mhm.
Right? You find that you're still making connection with baby. You're not really having thoughts that are out of control in your mind. Um, and we find that with baby blues, I mean, a little rest, if you get a day off or something or a night off, you generally will recharge, right? But and typically baby blues is 2 weeks, right? So with postpartum depression, we know that we're in trouble because that tearfulness, that sadness, those thoughts and worries, they're going beyond the 2 weeks now. You're entering 3 weeks,
Right.
entering, a month of having these experiences. And some of the other things that you might not automatically connect to postpartum depression or anxiety is like isolation, right? Like withdrawing yourself. So I think that that can kind of get confused because we expect new moms to kind of stay home and want to be to themselves. But we can kind of know if, we kind of can see if there's anxiety because
Mhm.
not only is mom not want to pass off baby, but she has a lot of fears around what will happen to baby if she passes off care. What does that mean about herself as a mom if she has to pass off care, right?
Mhm.
With postpartum mental health, we see a lot of impact on mom's perception of herself as a person, her abilities, judgment upon herself, and we see also can be like scary, what we call scary thoughts.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so scary thoughts are what we call in psychology intrusive thoughts. And those are the thoughts that we cannot control, but they sort of just pop up in your mind. And they can be scary because they might be about perhaps you hurting your baby or doing something that is harmful to your child or neglecting baby. They can even be fears around other people hurting your baby or constantly worrying that baby is going to fall or you're going to drop that baby.
Mhm.
Um, but one thing that I always say to moms is two things like those thoughts and those concerns are popping up because you are a good mom, right? You're not having scary thoughts
Right.
because you're a bad mom. it's because actually you really, really care about your baby, and your mind is having a really difficult time scanning through the world for all the risk for that baby that you do really love. Um, and the second thing is, if you can come to somebody and recognize that they're just thoughts, then you'll be okay, right? And so this is a little offshoot of the question, but where things get more scary is when it turns into like postpartum psychosis, right?
Mhm.
And that's kind of more the picture that we've seen over the last 30 years about postpartum, where moms actually may harm the children or harm themselves. But we can kind of know that a mom is getting into that space because she's starting to not really recognize that her thoughts are thoughts. They seem real.
Mhm.
She's really
Can't
disconnected.
really tell the difference, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's pretty much that big marker.
Awesome. Well, that was an awesome explanation. I think that um, beyond recognizing the signs and symptoms, one of the other things that is huge in terms of our discussion would be to touch on the stigma around accessing mental health services. So, what advice would you give to a mom who might be worried, like this is going to happen to me, or it's happened to someone in my family? I don't know how to handle this. What are people going to think of me? How do you talk through that?
Yeah. Yeah. So I would first say, if you're already having those worries, it's a good time to find a therapist now.
Hmm.
You don't have to wait until you maybe or maybe not become one of those women who experience a postpartum mental health challenge or issue. You in this moment can go ahead, and some places where you can find therapists who specialize in that is, of course, Postpartum Support International. They're the number one leaders in this work, and they have a directory on their website where you can find people who've been trained to work in perinatal mental health. Um, of course, you can go on Psychology Today. I'm on there too. So you'll find people on there. But I will always encourage you, you can see if somebody does have that training by, you can go on their website and see if they have a badge that says that they have the PSI training or baby 2020 training, or mommy 2020 training in this work. But I would also say, if you cannot find somebody who specializes in this work, that it's okay to find somebody who's just a good therapist,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, what's more important is that you find the professional help that you need to manage how you're feeling and how you're thinking. So one thing I tell people is, like, if you can't find a specialist, if you're finding that you're worried about what's going to happen next and it's anxiety, you find a therapist who specializes in anxiety. If you're feeling depressed, you find you a therapist whose focus is on depression. And that way you still get the help you need, even if it's not with a specialist.
Right. Awesome. Now, you specialize in working with NICU moms, right? Can you talk about some of the special considerations for our moms who maybe have a baby in the NICU or already know that they have a complicated pregnancy and their baby will likely end up in the NICU? What are some tips and guidance that you can give to those moms?
Yeah. So if you are pregnant and you're having a high risk pregnancy and you're expecting to have a NICU baby, I would do some hard work on what is support going to look like between your time in the NICU and then when baby comes home.
Mhm.
I think that even when you're working with a doula, if they don't have a lot of experience working with NICU families, there's sort of the part that's lost in translation is that postpartum is sort of extended for you.
Mhm.
Right? And it looks really different because you have the baby and your hormones are immediately thrown off whack, the same way all the moms are. But
Right.
now your baby doesn't get to come home with you. And so you are still tired because you're going back and forth to the NICU. You may be up all night pumping your milk, but you're not home taking care of that baby who's waking up every few hours yet. And so you may not even show some of those postpartum depression or anxiety symptoms right away because you're more so in a survival mode. Did I freeze?
A little bit.
Okay.
I think we caught the most of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go
So,
ahead.
so yeah, I think that a huge part of it is kind of for yourself as the mom and providers and support people to kind of understand that that time in between is still really, really important in terms of postpartum recovery for your body and your mind.
Mhm.
And anything that a person would be doing for postpartum recovery when their baby's home, they need to be doing that even while their child is in the NICU. Um, and the other thing is, and this is again, I mean, you kind of got to have your support system. You should be looking for a therapist now because this is hard. Like going through having a baby in the NICU is hard. And although it's not a trauma for everyone, because trauma is in the eye of the beholder, it
Mhm.
is often a trauma for most parents, even parents who've had a shorter NICU stay. It's still traumatic because there is that separation, that immediate separation that happens between mom and baby. And so um, I would encourage mom to sort of already know who's her emotional support person going to be. Um, if you know you're going to end up in the NICU, girl, pack your bags as soon as possible, because you may give birth early.
Mhm.
And so I would say, don't wait on packing your bags,
Yeah.
get that done. That's like just a small thing. But I think even though it's small, it can be really impactful because if you go
Right.
into sudden and premature labor, being able to know that there's something that you have control over. I packed my bag and I'm able to make the choices about the things that will make me feel at home while I'm in the hospital.
Yeah. Right. Great, great, great advice. Um,
Am I breathing a lot? Let me know because
now,
Dr. D, am I?
no, no, not a lot. It's just, I think it might be my connection as well. At some points, it's telling me that it's a little unstable. But so far, we've caught everything, pretty much everything that you said. Don't worry, if you freeze a whole lot, I'll just ask you to repeat.
Okay, just
Because
wanted
this
to
is
make
really
sure.
good information, and I want to make sure that everybody, yeah, I want to make sure everybody gets it. Now, I just had a thought about moms who have pre-existing mental health conditions, right? So we've talked a little bit about perinatal disorders, um, but what about postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis, and anxiety during pregnancy? But what about our moms who have a pre-existing mental health condition? What are, so if you can, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you could give us a couple of tips for those moms who are either planning to become pregnant or currently pregnant, what they can do to best have the best outcomes.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of what I've been saying this whole time is
Mhm.
you really want to structure your support system in advance. If you're trying to conceive and you know that you've struggled with any mental health challenges, then this is not the time to get rid of your therapist if you already have one.
Yeah,
You know, if you have,
exactly.
you know, if you've had a therapist that you've liked in the past and you haven't worked with them in a while, this is the time to give them a call again. Um,
Mhm.
because, pregnancy can be such a roller coaster. Even when you are experiencing a very healthy pregnancy, we already know those hormones, right? We don't have control over that. They impact how we feel and how we're managing the relationships in our lives. And so a lot of times, even when women are coming into therapy, they may not automatically come in because they themselves are experiencing depression and anxiety. They are, but they may be coming in complaining about problems in their relationship. But we
Mhm.
find that, right, because you're experiencing depression and anxiety, you're trying to conceive or whatever's going on, those things are impacting your relationship. So even if you're having a healthy pregnancy, even if it's been a while since you've had a bout of depression, you want to go ahead and make that call now. And the other thing is, if you're working with a therapist who may not be specialized in perinatal mental health, you can ask them, right? You know what? I've heard that creating like a plan in advance for my mental health would be helpful. Can we do that? Right?
Mhm.
And some of the things that you want to do in that, if you don't have a doula already, is thinking about who are going to be your contact people. You know,
Mhm.
breastfeeding and lactation and bottle feeding, all of those things can create a lot of anxiety for moms, depression, and like challenges with how they feel about themselves. So these are things that you might want to already talk about in advance. These are plans that you might want to say, if I'm attempting to breastfeed but it doesn't go the right way, I should already have my lactation person saved in my phone. Um, so kind of knowing who those people are going to be, even in your family,
Mhm.
who are going to be the designated people for certain things. And although that may not fix the pre-existing mental health conditions you have, they will ease them, because
Mhm.
you're when you're pregnant or when you're postpartum, there's a lot of other things added to your list of responsibilities and to-do
Right.
list. And so we're looking for ways to kind of take off the burden. And those are some simple ways to kind of decrease high, anxiety and depression. And I think the last thing I would say is, if you're on medication, you definitely want to consult your psychiatrist, right? Or
Mhm.
your prescribing physician. And Postpartum Support International actually has a call line that's free, and you can ask them about medications and how they might um, impact pregnancy, how they might impact breastfeeding. So that's always an available resource.
Awesome. Thank you so, so much for that. Um, Getting back to the discussion about the stigma around mental health issues, can you talk to us a little bit about what the prevalence is? Like, how common is this? Should a mom feel like, oh my God, like, I'm the only one going through this, which we often tend to do, is we feel like we're the only people going through something. But talk a little bit about how common or how prevalent this issue is.
Yes. So the statistics say that about 1 in 5 to, it depends where you're looking, but about 1 to 5 to maybe like 8 women experience this. But it all kind of always depends on who's actually admitting how they feel,
Right.
right? So they always say that when we include the whole gambit of diagnosis and experiences, all the way from like pregnancy through postpartum, it's closer to 1 to 5 women. So
Mhm.
that's a lot, right?
Mhm.
If you're an expectant or new mom, and you are in a support group or a mommy group, you probably at least have 5 to 10 women in that group. So that means that like one, two, or three of you are experiencing that. You're not alone.
Mhm.
And so even for women who don't admit it,
Mhm.
they're experiencing that. And that's why I say I have so many women who come into counseling, and it's been 3 years.
Mhm.
And they'll tell me, I think that I had postpartum depression, but I never did anything about it. And it's still affecting me now. Um, and so you're definitely not alone. I think the challenges is that we're not always speaking about it.
Mhm.
But what I will say is I am noticing a shift for sure.
Yes.
And I think, I think that as a generation, particularly, especially as Black women, as a generation, we're all trying to break different curses, in our community. And part of that is I see so many of us speaking out more openly about it. And I think social media, is helpful in that people that we would never expect are coming out and talking about their postpartum experiences. So it is very common. If you are experiencing that, you are far, far from being alone.
Right. Awesome. Talk a little bit about, you mentioned having the right support, right? So what are some of the things that those support people in mom's life, what are some of the things that they can do to really be helpful?
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, I definitely will go down a little of few specific things,
Yeah.
but I would say for every family, the core question to ask is, how do we help mom get some rest? And that will tell you exactly what you need to be doing and
Hmm.
how you need to do it. Because one of the things that they always say about postpartum depression is that rest is like the key cure.
Hmm.
When women enter psychosis or deep postpartum depression, they often go to maternal hospitals or centers, and in those places, they literally rest. They do get on medication, but they are ordered to sleep
Right.
for days. And if we can build our community support and our family support around making sure that mom can get the rest postpartum, then we really do a good job of decreasing her risk of getting to a dangerous and unhealthy place. So I'd say that's the first question to start with. Um,
Mhm.
so I think some easy ways to make sure that mom gets rest is around feeding, right? So if you
Mhm.
have baby home and it's a healthy pregnancy, whether you're breastfeeding or you're bottle feeding, during the nighttime or during the day, these are optimum times for other people to step in and to take baby away from you so you can continue to sleep. So I know that many moms want that. They don't always know how to ask for that. And so support people, that's something to be thinking of. You know, you can get up at night. And particularly, I'm going to add in something for NICU families.
Mhm.
If your NICU mom in the house is pumping, you might not even be thinking about how you can offer some more rest and recovery because the baby isn't there. But if she's pumping, she's still getting up every 2 to 4 hours and she's pumping,
Right.
she's tired, and she's still trying to recover. And so being able to say, I'm going to get up on her clock. Whenever I'm going to set my alarm the same time she does so that she can get up and pump, but she doesn't have to go down to the kitchen and put it in the freezer. I'll do that so she can go back to sleep and be ready to be present for baby in the NICU tomorrow morning. So I think that that's really helpful and supportive. Of course, meals, you know,
Mhm.
one of my favorite thing is those websites that allow you to create those meal trains for
Mhm.
people. I love that. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel, everybody. Use those. um,
Right.
and I would encourage families too to not feel like a burden by having those sent out. If somebody wants to do that for you and send out a list, you should allow them to do that because it will make a huge impact on your ability to kind of settle into parenthood, and manage the
Mhm.
stress and the exhaustion. Um, and then if your significant other has some sort of paternal leave, or your mom or your cousin, whoever it is that's in your group of people, you can actually create a schedule of who's going to be on and who's going to be off so that it works like clockwork. And so I know things are different right now with COVID. Some families are creating ways to do that by taking the test, or so that they can come. But I
Mhm.
also heard today, I was on Clubhouse and I heard a mom said that she gave birth during the height of the pandemic. And because of that, there was no support. Nobody came at all. So it really comes down to like you and your support person trying to figure out, like you and your significant other trying to figure out how are you gonna take those turns. And I would tell this, um, what's her name? Birdie, who is a leader in Postpartum Support International. I love this that she says to moms. I was one of those moms too who did not want to roll over and tap my husband in the middle of the night because I felt like, well, he's got to get up and go to work in the morning. But Birdie always says, you have to get up and go to work too.
Mhm.
You know, that is hard work of getting up and being with a baby all day long and probably not getting sleep. And then you go the whole night probably waking up and not getting that sleep too. So you have to have that open conversation, especially during this pandemic with your significant other, with how can we both get rest? Yes, I'm
Right.
mom. Yes, I may have a longer maternity leave. I'm home and you're commuting, but I'm not going to be good for this baby if I am on a 24-hour cycle. So figuring out how to break up that 24-hour
Yeah.
cycle with your partner.
Absolutely. Really, really great tips. I do want to take a moment to talk a little bit about COVID and how that has impacted. I don't know if you have worked with any moms recently who maybe have delivered during COVID. What can you say about what you've witnessed in terms of mental health concerns with moms this year with this pandemic?
The anxiety is through the
Mhm.
roof,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Before the pandemic, of course, any mom can have high anxiety in pregnancy,
Mhm.
regardless of situation, regardless of the health of the pregnancy. But I would always, I kind of would think about high anxiety a lot of times with my population of high risk moms.
Mhm.
But now I'm seeing kind of the same level of anxiety and even the same concerns passing over now to just all the moms. And a lot of the concerns that NICU moms have, your average mom is having now too, because there's all these concerns about germs, right? And
Mhm.
who can hold the baby, who can come see the baby. And these are things that have been common to NICU moms all the years, all the time. But now we're really seeing that full blown with everybody. So I would say the anxiety has been through the roof with the moms about just being able to maintain their pregnancies, even if you have to go to work. You know, some moms
Right.
who have to go into the workplace with their pregnancy, and that's creating intense anxiety. And so my thing about anxiety when pregnant is we have to be really mindful about what in what ways are we practicing relaxation for our body, right? Because that
Mhm.
mind body connection is serious and it's no joke. Um, and so definitely learning how to take those breaks and accommodating breathing techniques for your pregnant body, making sure that you create that time for yourself to recharge your body because that nervous system in your body is no joke, and
Mhm.
your body is working overtime right now during your pregnancy. And so we already have a lot of different portions of your body that or aspects of your body that may not be at optimal because it's focused on, sustaining life. And so the best thing that moms can do at this time is, yes, maintain your social distance. Yes, you want to sanitize, but you got to put in that time for that relaxation, um, and not only just relaxation, but making sure that it gets that mind body connection. So that deep breathing, it might be prenatal yoga, those sorts of things.
Right. Do you find that the anxiety is more so because of trying to keep the virus away, or is it from the lack of, because you mentioned before, and we talked about this in other episodes, but about the distance, not having your circle around you, or are you finding a combination of both with how moms are being affected?
Definitely a combination.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah.
Coming, I think it's like it's anxiety provoking to not
Hmm.
know who can be there for you,
Hmm.
because I think most women, when we envision pregnancy and birth, you envision the maternal figure in your life, whether that's your mom or your aunt, your grandma, being able to be present with you at the birth, to be present with you during your postpartum stage, to really like help you become a mom and to help you get
Yeah.
your rest. And
Hmm.
for many families, that hasn't been an option. And even if you are working around that by testing, it's still just anxiety provoking. You know that even if you're testing, even if you're quarantining, a lot of families still feel worried that they're taking that risk at all. And so it's definitely been a combination of keeping the virus away, um, going out in the world and trying to stay away from it, but also not knowing who's gonna be your support. And just like, this is like a time in your life that you expect to be happy and be able to like, oh, baby showers, right? People
Hmm.
are not, most women are not
Yeah.
having
Yeah.
the traditional baby shower. And so it's interesting because I think about like my own experience, right? Like I had a big baby shower that was planned for me, and then I went into premature labor, and I was freaked out in my head, like I'm not gonna get a baby shower, and it devastated me so
Mhm.
much. And now I'm seeing that with like a lot of moms who are having to reconcile that now that I'm not going to get the baby shower that I expected. They're trying to be grateful and they are grateful for having their virtual baby showers, but it still just isn't the same thing. And so
Yeah.
I would say, even on top of the anxiety, is that loss that a lot of moms during COVID are experiencing, that loss of the expectation of what you thought it would be like to be pregnant, to have a baby shower, to have your
Yeah.
girlfriends gather around you. So
Yeah. That is huge. Um, and speaking of, the toll that this thing has taken on folks, um, and you mentioned that this is supposed to be the joyous time, right? Everybody's happy that someone's gonna have a baby, right? It's the happier area in terms of nursing. You know, to us a little bit about how to best deal with when we have a loss, or is if that's something that's within your purview to speak to, whether it's on the mom's side, where we have a maternal loss and we're trying to address the family that's left behind, or whether it's a neonatal loss where mom has to now go home without her baby.
Yeah. So can you repeat the beginning of the question? Because it froze a little bit on my end.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was just asking, what tips or suggestions would you have for working with a family who's experienced a maternal loss, meaning, they've lost the mother, or um, in terms of supporting a mom who now has to go home without her baby because she's had a neonatal loss?
Yeah. Those are good questions. Deep, 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 deep questions. So I guess I'll kind of start a little bit with neonatal loss, especially because that's a little bit more where my work focuses is
Yeah.
on.
Mhm.
Um, and so I guess so. Do you mean like support if you're a family member or if you are like a birth worker? Who am I speaking to?
Just advice that you would give to the mom who
Oh,
now has
we'll
to
give
go home without her baby. Yeah.
okay, yes. Everything that you feel is valid, okay?
Hmm.
A lot of times I see that because people love us. I always say this, people love us, right? Our people are for us and they don't want to see us sad.
Hmm.
And so they say things that aren't always helpful,
Hmm.
but they don't say it to hurt us. They say it because they want to see us smile. But even when everybody's trying to tell us to see the silver lining, especially if you birth the baby, you might hear things like, well, at least you were able to carry a baby. At least you were able to get pregnant. At least you were able to meet your baby. No, what you feel is real. What you feel is a loss and it is valid, right? Sometimes neonatal losses and miscarriages and all of those things can be a bit ambiguous for other people because it's hard to process in your mind that a baby, something that you expect to see grow up, that it's lost, right? And so we don't always know how to process that and how to help people process that. So I would tell mom that even though you didn't get to see the whole life pan out the way that you expected or the way that you usually see, it's still a massive loss and it's valid
Hmm.
and it's to be honored. Um, and another part that goes with that is like every time, like even when women are pregnant and have miscarriages early on, we're women, right? We get excited and it's common and it's natural to think about the life, right? What will they be? What will I be like as their mom?
Hmm.
And so that is also a valid loss, not only just the life, but your expectations are a massive loss and how you see yourself, like you saw yourself as who I was going to be mothering this person. You are still a mom,
Hmm.
right? You are still a mom whether your child is earthside or not, and that's also a loss, is who you thought you'd be as a mom.
Right.
Well, all of those different emotions and experiences, those are so valid. And I think that before anything else, when you're working with moms who've had loss, or you yourself are a mom who've had a neonatal loss, before we get to anything else, it's just knowing that it's okay to feel how you feel, and it's such a valid, real loss.
Okay. Awesome. I think that's a really good point to validate that person's feelings, and not try to explain it away. Allowing people to feel how they feel and allowing them to go through that grief process. Um, Before we go, I have just maybe two more questions, and then we'll see if anybody has anything that they want to ask. I thought, as we were having that conversation about neonatal loss, about moms who may be struggling to conceive, in terms of their mental health, and if there's any advice that you could give to those moms as well.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Great question because TTC moms don't always get in the conversation, right? Because they're still trying to get into the on the other side. Um, but I mean, I would kind of say similar things, right? Because it's
Right.
about validating, right? Validating that experience that that woman is having, and I would always validate to a TTC mom that listen, girl, you are a woman, okay? You know, you're
Yeah.
a woman, even if this has been hard. Because you know, that's something that I hear a lot, you know, from TTC moms is that you we grow up expecting that we're going to have children, you know, the people around us expect us to want to be moms and to easily be able to become mothers, and so when it doesn't happen, it can kind of challenge how we think about womanhood, femininity, how we see ourselves and how we fit into womanhood. um and so I would say, honey, you are a woman nonetheless, you know. And then still just focusing on validating that experience, because you know, like every time that a woman checks if she's pregnant and she does not see what she wants to see, it's a disappointment, it's a loss of the expectation, it's a loss of, you know, what you hoped. And
Mhm.
so I think it's important to recognize that it's not only about cheering those families on, you know, it's also about recognizing how hard it is to be disappointed
Mhm.
month after month. I mean, gosh, if we just think about our daily life, right? And like you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and you get small disappointments in a day,
Yeah.
how much that bums us out. Imagine trying to conceive with your partner and month after month. That's devastating and it's really, really hard. And I think that we definitely have to put a little bit more emphasis on recognizing how hard it is to go through that experience.
Awesome. Thank you so, so much. I guess I don't know if because you have your live stream going as well. If there were any questions in your live stream
You know,
that
I
you
didn't
want to
even put
bring
it
to the
on because
forefront. No.
I didn't even put my live stream on because I was like, I don't even know how to like how to do both. I'm not going to be able to multitask that good.
Got you.
I mean, so I had some people who sent some questions on DMs that they weren't necessarily like postpartum questions, I would say. They were more like motherhood questions.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure if they necessarily fit into
Okay.
the dialogue, but I would
Okay.
still be happy to answer them because they're tuned in or not.
Yeah,
But I had
definitely. Go ahead.
yeah, I had one person ask how they can manage anxiety around their child's development.
Hmm.
And I think that that's a really common question.
Hmm.
No matter what, you know, type of experience you have had. So I think my main thing is we always got to step out of that comparison trap, number one,
Oh,
right?
yes.
And I
Huge.
super and I say is good training for the whole journey of parenthood, right? Because when our kids get into grade school, high school, they're going to have gifts and strengths, and they're going to have weaknesses too.
Mhm.
And we kind of have to now start to get our mindset into you know, kind of nurturing and knowing that it's okay, right, for our kids to have a weakness or to be behind in something. It's not a representation of who your child is, but I think even more so, it's not a representation of who you are as a mom,
Right.
right?
Right.
um all people are different, and I think as adults we can recognize like, hey, we're individuals, but your babies, your toddlers, your kids, they're individuals too,
Mhm.
you know. And so they're
That's
not,
right. That's right.
yeah, they're not going to develop on a strict line. That's why I will always say this: when you are reading your articles, your blogs, or your books all about development, remember that there's always that gap. They give a
Yep.
huge gap of baby can start crawling between this month and that month. And it's super important to remember that your baby does not have to be on the early end because they're going to get there. And when things start to become
Right.
you know, as a mom, you got to trust your gut. You know when your child has sort of come way out of the expected time to meet developmental milestones. And guess what? One, like I said before, it is certainly not a representation of who you are as a mom. But two, there's somebody to call for that. There's always somebody to call.
That's
Girl,
right.
core early intervention, it doesn't mean anything about you. And you know what? I promise you, you'll love being an early intervention because you get a lot of perks with it. So I would say, you know,
Oh yeah, a lot of attention, a lot of
yeah.
one-on-one support. Yep.
And that support is really helpful for mom too. So
Yep.
um just with the anxiety, I would say just always making sure you remember that there is a large gap of time where children can meet milestones, and not to compare them to your friends' children, because girl, they don't want to be compared when they're 3 months, 6 months, and when they're 10. No, put your focus on nurturing what they're doing really, really well at. It's great time to practice that.
Awesome. I don't, I'm looking at Facebook. I'm not seeing any questions right now. Were there any other questions on your end?
It was another kind of like mom, kind of motherhood question. It was, how do I deal with a toxic parent, or in-law giving bad or unsolicited advice or critique?
Oh no, now that's good. That's real good for a
Yeah,
brand new mommy. Yeah.
it is, because you know what? That can definitely happen when you are early postpartum, and that can happen during pregnancy as well. Um, I think,
Mhm.
I think the simple answer is when people do that, you can always let them know, thank you so much for your thoughts. I will take that into consideration.
Yep.
That is how you end the conversation. It's all about I'm a therapist. It's all about de-escalation. Okay. De-escalation. So, so I'll take that into consideration. That doesn't mean that you will, that you will do it or you won't do it. And the second thing is, I think, with everything always comes the inner piece of it, right? Um, why is everybody else's voices bothering you so much, right? So
Mhm.
really taking that time to determine, are you feeling confident in your decisions as a mom? Or do you have your value system set as a parent? And then that means that that whatever information is coming in, you're always applying it like a litmus test to what your value set is. And if it doesn't set with your value system, let it fly at the end of the day. Because and back to my original statement is, when you tell somebody, hey, I'll take it into consideration, you might as well say that, because sometimes when you go into a long spiel about what you believe and what they don't believe, people are still going to try to push their stuff on you, and it's
Right.
not worth it. Because if you are solid on your values as a mother, it's not worth the time, it's not worth the energy. And so you just want to de-escalate and let them know, thanks so much. you know I'm confident on what I'm doing right here, but I will take that into consideration. And always remember that it's also okay to listen to people, because we're learning. We're on this journey learning how to be the best
Exactly.
moms that we can be. And that's why I said, always taking what you hear, apply it to your own, like a litmus test. Does that really kind of line up to my values and beliefs? Because if it does, it might be something really helpful to you. And if not, let it go.
Let it fly. Let it fly. Awesome advice. I love it. I'm gonna probably use that. I'm not a mom, but I'll probably just use that in my day to day. Thank you for your thoughts. I'll definitely take that into consideration. That's awesome. I love it. So we're just about at the 40-minute mark. And I don't have any additional questions for you, and I'm not seeing any questions in the chat here. So I would just ask you, before I give you the opportunity to tell people how they can get in touch with you, any final words of advice in terms of mental health, as it relates to becoming a new mom, or being a recently delivered mom?
Yeah. I think I would really just say, remembering and knowing that your mental health is still a priority.
Mhm.
Um, that this is a time in your life where you will be probably over the next 18 years, or probably forever, right? Because you never stop being a mom. you now will enter the most selfless part of your life now, where you are giving, but also people around you are expecting you to give, give, give. And I want all moms, no matter what stage they're at, to remember that part of giving and a part of being selfless to your children, to your family, is also prioritizing your mental health, refueling yourself, whether that means creating the time that you need for yourself, working conjointly with your partner so that you
Mhm.
can get your day off, or your hour a day, whatever it is that works for your family. Or if it simply means getting into therapy. I'm a therapist, but I'm also a mom. And so I may not stay in long-term therapy, but I'm going to tell you, yes, from time to time I call my therapist and I say I could use 2 sessions, because I'm a mom, I'm overwhelmed, and I just need to talk. And so that there is no shame and needing to talk to somebody,
Mhm.
even if there's no resolution, right? Because all problems don't come with a solution. I will say that, right? In life. And that's okay, because life is to be lived, right? We don't always have to have a solution, but having a place where you can openly vent, you
Yeah.
can have a sounding board. And it's just so different. Going to therapy is so different than talking to your significant other or your best friend, because you don't have to worry about whose feelings you're going to hurt.
Mhm.
If you want to learn how to ask, how to be better at asking for the help you need, you can do that in therapy too. So just remembering, even from pregnancy, like even in this moment that you're pregnant right now, your mental health is still so important to you, but your baby really cares about your mental health, because the better you are, the better baby is. And so yeah, prioritize that, mama.
That's right. I love that. So tell the people how they can get in touch with you, maybe about some of the things that you have coming up, how they can reach you. Yeah.
Yes. So the two main ways that you can reach out to me is, of course, on Instagram. The underscore breakthrough mama. And there I share kind of basic things about mental health. I share things about NICU mental health, high risk pregnancies, and pretty much just like mental health for moms in general. And the link in my bio there, you can get more information on me. You can actually book a free 20-minute consultation with me to chat about what's going on and to see how I can support you. Um, I provide individual therapy at this moment, and individual therapy is for people in the state of Virginia. But I also provide mommy coaching, and that can be for anybody, anywhere. Upcoming, I do have a workshop for mommies who have a high risk pregnancy, and that's going to be toward the end of January. And that is really going to help mommies with high risk pregnancies kind of learn how to get that calm that they need in their body, how to manage all of that kind of medical information they're getting, and how to prepare to have a really, peaceful postpartum, where they
Yes.
can protect their mental health in postpartum as well. Um, and if anybody's interested in that, they can do the same thing. Reach out to me via Instagram. You can always find me as well on my website, which is thebreakthroughmama.com. I'm on Psychology Today. I'm also on Clubhouse as Anese Barnett.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yes, so I
Already following.
yes, we were in a room together. So
Yes.
so I will be having some rooms on for NICU moms, high risk pregnancies, but also just pregnancy in general, and mental health in this arena as well. So you can catch me there as well. So I'm looking forward to connecting with some folks. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so, so much. I think you shared such a wealth of knowledge in a short amount of time. And I know that the moms that work with you individually are in really great hands. Um, so thank you so much for committing this hour to having a conversation with me, Dr. D. And if there are no other questions, I will allow you to go on and be with your families. So thank you so much, Anise. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. You have a great night.
You too. Take care.
Bye. Okay.